Welcome back to our channel, where we explore thought-provoking stories from the scriptures. Today, we have an incredibly disturbing and shocking tale from the Old Testament that will leave you questioning the depths of human depravity. But before we dive into it, I want to issue a strong content warning. This story contains graphic and distressing content that may not be suitable for all viewers, especially younger audiences. Have you ever heard of the story found in the book of Judges, chapters 19 to 21? Most people are familiar with the beginning of this narrative, but few truly understand the dark and unsettling events that unfold throughout. When I first read this passage, I was shocked by the level of cruelty depicted. However, there are important lessons we can learn from it. I will present this story in a dramatic manner and discuss the lessons that I believe we can collectively take away from it. If you enjoy delving into biblical teachings and discovering impactful stories from the scriptures, make sure to subscribe to our channel and enable notifications so that you won't miss any future studies. Now, let's begin. Judges 19 recounts an ancient time when there was no king in Israel. In a remote area of the Ephraim Mountains, a Levite man resided. He encountered a woman in Bethlehem of Judah and brought her along, either as a concubine or as his wife. Unfortunately, this woman ended up betraying him. Reluctantly, the Levite made several attempts to leave with his wife, but his father insisted that they stay for one more night. This pattern repeated for several days until the man respectfully explained his need to return home and asked to be released. After much insistence, he was finally allowed to leave. However, a tragic event occurred during their journey. The Levite and his concubine traveled from Bethlehem in the south of Israel to the north of Ephraim, their home. It was a long and tiring journey. As they neared Gibeah, approaching dusk, the servant suggested they stop in the city to spend the night. However, the master refused, as he did not want to stay in a foreign city without Israelites. The servant insisted that they needed to find a place to rest as it was getting late. The master, concerned for their safety, expressed that it wouldn't be a secure place since there were no Israelites, and they were uncertain of the locals' reaction. Instead, he proposed going further to Gibeah, where he believed they would be safer as it was from the tribe of Benjamin, and he knew some people there who could assist them. Verse 13 highlights the importance of hospitality, so they continued their journey, aiming to reach either Gibeah or Ramah. As they approached Gibeah in Benjamin, the sun had set. They were hopeful, but upon arrival, they were shocked to find that no one was willing to accommodate them. Hospitality and home were highly valued in Israelite culture. Finally, at the end of the night, an old man emerged in the square, noticed them, and inquired why they were still there. The Levite explained their situation, and upon learning that they had been rejected, the old man offered them assistance, inviting them to spend the night at his house. Grateful, the travelers explained that they required nothing more than a place to rest from their arduous journey, even a simple pillow would suffice. The old man agreed to accommodate them, and thus, the Levite, his servant, and his concubine decided to spend the night at that man's house in Gibeah. Then, a shocking turn of events unfolded. While they were enjoying themselves, suddenly the men of the city, described as wicked men, surrounded the house, banging on the door, and demanded that the owner bring out the Levite so they could have sexual relations with him. This was an unimaginable situation. The owner of the house went out to them and pleaded, "No, my brothers, do not commit such a wicked act. Since this man is a guest in my house, do not commit this disgraceful act." Judges 19 verses 22 to 23, he even proposed offering his virgin daughter and the Levite's concubine to them, suggesting they could abuse them instead, but to refrain from committing such an outrageous act against the Levite. However, what happened next was beyond comprehension. The men refused to listen to him, Judges 19 verse 25. Then, the Levite took his concubine and cast her out, and they found her. Throughout the night, they subjected the poor woman to brutal abuse, one by one, until morning when they finally released her. This is why I issued a warning at the beginning of the video, as this content is extremely distressing. I want you to grasp the magnitude of this atrocity, a group of depraved and perverted men taking turns violating and mistreating this woman throughout the entire night. Only in the morning did they allow her to leave. Picture the scene: she is utterly exhausted, severely wounded, and has endured unimaginable torment at the hands of a group of men. She can barely summon the strength to crawl back to the house where she had been staying. When she reaches the door, she collapses. Now, consider what happens next. The Bible recounts that her master arose in the morning, opened the doors of the house, and prepared to continue his journey alone. However, he discovers his concubine collapsed near the door, her hands on the threshold. He implores her to rise, but she does not respond. It is already too late. She had endured such cruelty that she perished. The man places his wife's lifeless body on his donkey and takes her home. But the story doesn't end here. The outcome is even more horrifying than you might have imagined. When he arrives home, he takes a knife and dismembers his concubine's lifeless body into 12 pieces, limb by limb. He then sends a piece to each of the 12 tribes of Israel, along with a letter detailing the gruesome events perpetrated by their own brethren. One of the tribes, the tribe of Benjamin, receives a portion. As the other tribes witness and read about what happened to this woman, they are appalled. Such a heinous act had never occurred before in their history. In verse 30, it states, "And all who saw it said, such a thing has never happened or been seen from the day that the children of Israel came up out of the land of Egypt until this day." But there is much more to this story. In chapters 20 and 21, I will discuss the essential lessons that can be gleaned from this account. The first clear lesson is that when there is a lack of accountability in our lives, when there is no governing authority, and we are not answerable to anyone, we are prone to wander astray. This is explicitly stated in the book of Judges, chapter 19, verse 1. Although we have already touched upon this earlier, it is crucial to understand that during those times, there was no king in Israel. Do you realize that when you and I shirk our responsibilities, when there is an absence of reverence, when we don't feel compelled to explain or be held accountable for our decisions and actions, we are at risk of making drastic choices without considering other perspectives? This is precisely what occurred in Israel. Without a king to enforce the law, people went their own way, engaging in unimaginable actions. When we examine the book of Judges, we can see how distancing themselves from God caused the people to commit acts they had never before contemplated. These actions were unimaginable, highlighting how the more we distance ourselves from core values, the more prone we are to engaging in reprehensible behavior. The story continues beyond chapter 19, demonstrating how separating from God can make us vulnerable to committing unspeakable acts. But is the story really over? The intensity escalates in chapter 20, depicting a war between the 11 tribes of Israel and the tribe of Benjamin, the ones responsible for the heinous and scandalous act against their fellow Israelite. I encourage you to delve into chapters 20 and 21 to study the story in detail after this video. In summary, the battle was fierce and resulted in the loss of thousands of lives on both sides, nearly annihilating the Benjamites. In chapter 21, the other tribes begin to feel compassion and concern, realizing that only 600 Benjaminite men remain without wives to ensure the survival of the tribe. There is now a fear that one of the 12 tribes of Israel may cease to exist. Every action has a reaction, doesn't it? When you make poor decisions, there are consequences that you cannot control. The Benjamites committed something terrible, and as a result, the other 11 tribes decided to fight and kill them. This was a decision they had to confront, and the Benjamites also had to face the repercussions of their actions. As a consequence, the Israelites killed men from a particular clan and took 400 women who had never been with a man. These women were given to 400 of the 600 Benjamite men so that they could have children. However, a simple math problem arises. There were still 600 Benjamite men without wives because all the wives had been killed, and 400 of them already had wives provided by the Jabesh-Gilead tribe. The problem now is that there are 200 Benjaminite men remaining without wives. This leads to a series of ill-advised decisions. There was an oath that forbade the Israelites from giving their daughters to any man from the tribe of Benjamin, as breaking this oath would bring a curse upon the family. Now they face another complicated situation. The elders of the assembly come up with an idea. They decide to hold a feast in Shiloh, during which some of their daughters would go out to dance. Despite the oath, they subtly suggest that someone could capture the daughters, and they could then be taken as wives by the Benjamites. They say to the Benjamites, "If you find and abduct our daughters, we will be released from this commitment because technically you stole them. This way, you can marry them and have children." And so it happens. Each of the 200 Benjamite men captures a wife while the daughters are dancing at the feast, and they take them as their wives. Afterward, they rebuild their cities and settle in them. Following this, each Israelite returns to their tribe and family, reclaiming their own inheritance. The final verse of the book of Judges succinctly summarizes the entire story, highlighting that during those times, without a king in Israel, everyone did what they believed was right. It is intriguing to see how God's grace can reach anyone. God allowed the tribe of Benjamin to be rebuilt, averting their extinction. However, their decisions had dire consequences for many people. As I always emphasize on this channel, sin not only affects the sinner but also those around them, it spills over. Every choice we make in life carries an impact, whether positive or negative. May we seek discernment and rely on the guidance of the Lord to make the right decisions, understanding that when we choose the right path, it benefits everyone around us. Did you already know this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. May God bless you and your family. Stay tuned for more episodes where we delve into critical issues found in the Bible. See you soon.